The first thing I wanted to talk about is how Fnatic, the esports organization and team, is starting to give fans a chance to part own the team. So Fnatic is one of the most established esports brands. They're offering people the chance to buy a small portion of its business. Now Sam, who's the boss of the team, says fan ownership could become more common in esports. And I'm going to start quoting him here. He said, "There's no truer way of bringing fans on your journey than giving an actual opportunity to own a piece of it." Now the team recently secured nearly 7.5 million euro in private funding, but wants a small percentage of the business, about roughly 1.5%, to be owned by the fans. Sam continues saying, "Until now, there hasn't really been a way for fans of esports to join their favorite teams. It's only been available to very rich individuals or institutional investors. This is definitely not about getting an extra cash injection. It's about the 3,500 people so far who've come along to invest." He continues saying that this is a democratizing access. We want to give them a place to voice their opinion, give a transparent view into what we're doing and where we're going and why. Fan ownership typically isn't far from the norm in traditional sports. In Germany, there are rules that football ownership require teams to be owned either fully or partly by fans. In England, there are some lower league football clubs that are partly owned by the fans. There are no Premier League clubs at the moment that are owned by the fans. The Green Bay Packers, for example, in the NFL in the USA, are entirely owned by the fans. Now, Sam, who's the boss of Fnatic, thinks that esports will benefit by offering people a chance to do the same, even if it is only a small portion of the overall structure of the team. In this interview, he continues, "I think one of the things that a lot of companies or teams get wrong is not asking often enough. What does the community actually want? Recently, we had a big change in our League of Legends roster, and our fans were disgruntled. They were upset. So we opened the doors and let them ask us anything about why and how it happened. Afterwards, they were thanking us for being transparent, and so we want to give them that all year round." Now, I find that really a really interesting concept. There's a strong belief that I think I'm starting to develop, where if you give people the time to truly explain themselves, because sometimes people just want to be heard and understood. So I think what Sam's doing here is a very intelligent move. When he has a fan base that's really disgruntled about the decisions that they're making, give the fans a moment to be heard and feel like they're listened to. And I think that'll get rid of at least some of the anger and frustration. If you're like, "Hey, I understand where you're coming from, but this is the reason why we made these choices, and I'm sorry that this happened." A couple of things I'd like to mention when it comes to these esports teams contemplating or even bringing in fans for investment. There is a level of risk. When you involve money, fans are going to feel like they're way more a part of the team. So when the team performances don't go as planned, there's going to be even more increased pressure on the players to perform. And even management for that level. Like a team manager, if the players are all good but the team's not performing well, it's going to go higher and higher up the level until you might have something like a mutiny happen. It is kind of questionable why they're bringing in the fans in the first place, because you can have some type of crowdsourcing means to brain pick and try to get the fans' input about what's going on in the organization, have them feel involved that way. But to open up the doors for investment, I think you're going to be bringing in a lot of risk. I'm not going to say it's going to be cons or negatives, but it's definitely going to be some form of risk. Lastly, before I leave this subject on Fnatic and other esports organizations, I've briefly talked on this. I'm not exactly sure how these esports organizations are making money other than sponsorships through big deals like grouping deals and having content creators on their team, not necessarily actual esports players. I do intend to do a lot of research in the next month to try to have some type of podcast episode where I can break down exactly how these guys make money and how it compares to traditional sports like the NFL, the MLB, the EPL. I mean, I'll name all of them. You know what I mean? But that's going to be it for about Fnatic. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has given a rare insight into how the business model of the Xbox Game Pass works for developers. So in an interview with The Verge, the exec said that the subscription service originally paid studios based on the usage of their game, but deals have now varied to the point where they're, in quotes, all over the place. So in this interview, he says that it sounds unmanaged, but it's really based on the developer's needs. A smaller to mid-sized developer might be starting a game and say, hey, we're willing to put this in a Game Pass on our launch day if you guys give us X dollars now. And then they'll create a floor for them in terms of success of their game so that they know they're going to get some return. Now, Spencer noted that in some cases, Microsoft pays for the full production of a game's development, but still allows a developer to generate some revenue by taking their title to retail, even for other platforms including PlayStation, Steam, and Nintendo Switch. In the interview, Spencer said, for them, they protected themselves from any downside risk. The game is going to get made, then they have all the retail upside, we have the opportunity for day and date, that would be a flat fee payment to a developer. He continued, others want agreements more based on usage and monetization, and whether it's a store monetization that gets credited through transactions or usage. We are open to experimenting with many different partners because we don't think we have to figure it out. And then he continues again, when we started, we had a model that was all based on usage. Most of the partners said, yeah, we understand that, but we don't believe it. So just give us the money up front. Now, I find that pretty interesting for the developers, but at the same time, they're definitely minimizing their level of risk for the game usage. At the time, I'm sure when Xbox Game Pass came out, not a lot of people thought that it would be successful. Subscription model only became a norm, I would say, in the past couple of years. I'm not exactly sure when Xbox Game Pass came out. I'm going to take a look right now. According to Wikipedia, the Xbox Game Pass came out June 1st, 2017. And it is now on the Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S and xCloud. Also, of course, every operating system that has Android and Windows on it. Now, I think 2017, if my memory serves me correct, that was around the same time when the microtransaction scandals were going on with big name developers like Activision, Blizzard, EA. I think Ubisoft might have been another one. But having those subscription and like microtransactions of people being really upset, if I'm correct, the Xbox Game Pass wasn't very popular when that happened. And there was a little bit of controversy with the launch. So I can understand why developers at that time would want right off the bat is like, hey, I want the money up front. Here's the game. Do what you want with it. You can have it on the Xbox Game Pass for as long as you want, instead of having some type of usage. Which was what Microsoft originally wanted. But it seems like it's all panning out, and now it's at the point where there are just so many different games on the Xbox Game Pass. I mean, there are upwards of hundreds now. I have it. It's a great investment if you're a huge gamer and you just want variety. The developers, like Phil Spencer said, they got some that are doing on a usage basis, and they have some with a flat rate. Anyways, I thought that was pretty interesting that Phil Spencer is starting to give more information about like what Xbox is doing.